In this video, I want to go over a web browser known as the Opera web browser. Now, this is a cross-platform web browser, meaning that you can install it on a Windows machine, a Mac, Linux, and an Android device. I'm using Ubuntu Mate 18.04, which is a distribution of the Ubuntu Linux system. I'm using the traditional menu, so I click on Applications, Internet, and as you can see, here is the Opera icon and the term Opera. Let me click onto it to open up the browser itself. Now, this is not what you will initially see when you install it. I've customized it, and I've customized it to use animated images in the background. Now, these are your speed dials. By default, it will come up with some random ones that a lot of people use as they go to, but you can actually highlight over a speed dial icon, click the button, you can open a new tab, open a new window, open in a private window, open in a new workspace such as workspace 1 or open in workspace 2, and your workspaces are down at the bottom. Here's workspace 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can edit, and that's what I did to change each of these. I went to my edit mode, I put in DuckDuckGo, and I put in the address and hit OK, and I edited or changed the speed dial on this. Or if you want to delete one, you can actually say move to trash, and it will delete the speed dial off of your start screen. You can display the weather for your current location. You can see that it's sunny. You can check out the whole forecast. You can go here to edit the location on your browser. Now, in the upper right hand corner, now I do have some extensions or add-ons installed, and I'll show you more about that on my webpage. Here is your easy setup. When you first install it, instead of going into the settings, which can be a little overwhelming, you might want to first go into easy setup, which you can choose the dark mode or light mode. I think the default was the light mode. I changed it to dark mode to match my dark theme. You can say to show the bookmark bar. By default, I have it turned off. You can add it to where you see your bookmarks across the top. You can say show the sidebar, and on the sidebar you got things that are things you commonly would use on here, and we'll talk more about that when I bring up my web page. I like to disable it because keeping the sidebar on uses up a lot of your browser real estate. And now the dot 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 is your sidebar settings, so you can go and click on this and enable what you want to be located on the sidebar, so you can customize the sidebar to meet your needs. Now, let me go and turn the sidebar off. Alright, you got a start page. You can control what wallpaper you are looking at. You can choose a dark screen. Now, that was, I think, what was on the default, and this is my current wallpaper on my desktop. You can choose it to display. Here's an animated one. As you can see, that's the one that I currently have selected. There's lots of different wallpapers that you can choose to put in the background of your start page. You can say get more wallpapers or add a wallpaper from your system. You can use bigger tiles, so that's what's enabled, or you can disable those and it makes them much smaller. So if you like the big tiles, or you can, if you think they're too large, you can leave it small. I'll leave it small for right now so you can see the animation in the background. It says show speed dial suggestions. If you enable that, it's going to show you suggestions at the bottom. It's going to keep places that you've surfed, that you've been before, and offer you to keep those at the bottom here. So as you visit different sites, it will offer you different suggestions. You can turn on news so that it will show you some of the news features. You can choose what type news that you want to see. I turn that off. You can say to show the weather, and that's the default weather which you see here. You can turn that off if you don't like the weather feature. As you can see here, my weather feature here, I guess gets it at a different location than the weather feature here, but it's only a degree off, so it's not bad. You can choose to block ads by default, or you can turn that ad blocker off. Now, I do have a uBlock Origin installed, but it does have an internal ad blocker and a tracker blocker. And if the VPN's not turned on by default in the settings, you can turn that on, or in the easy setup you can say enable in the settings to turn on your VPN. Now, the VPN is not actually turned on, it's just in here where I can click onto it, so I can turn it on, and you've got Americas, Europe, Asia, and the optimum location that it randomly chooses a location to allow you to hide your IP address when you're surfing online. I think of this more of a proxy than a VPN, so if you're trusting this to hide your IP address, then I would be a little skeptical about that. I think it's more of a proxy than an actual VPN. looking down below, you can make this your default browser, or you can actually go to the browser settings by clicking this and scrolling down through your settings. But before we get to looking at the settings, let's take a look at my website to see how to install it. So if I go to my history, I can say the history here, and here is my browsers part of my web page. Now, the link below, I'll be providing a link just to the Opera website. But up here, when you go to Additional, click on Browsers, this is what you would be seeing, the different browsers that you can install for Linux system. In this case, the Ubuntu derivative of Ubuntu Mate. Now, the reason I clicked here is if you're using Ubuntu Mate 20.04 or the earlier versions, and like I said, I'm using 18.04.5, you can install Opera by bringing up your welcome screen, clicking on the browser selection button, and then clicking onto the install button for Opera, and it will install. And you can install any type of browser that you see here on the list. And these are some of the most popular browsers, not just for a Linux system, but for Windows and Mac as well. But you can install them by a one-click installation. Now, if you're not using the welcome screen, then I will show you how you can install it by going to the actual Opera section of my web page. Now, as you can see here, I have a little brief description at the top which says Opera is a Chromium-based browser. So this is very similar to Google Chrome or the Chromium browser that you would be using, but it has a lot of tweaks and features that is not found within Google Chrome or Chromium. It's a multi-platform browser, meaning that you can install it on a variety of operating systems. It does have a free VPN with very little sites to choose from, and if you choose Americas, you don't know where it's connecting to in the Americas. It could be North America, South America, so you don't know really where it's choosing from. It does have a built-in ad blocker that you can enable, and it does have integrated messengers that you can put on the sidebar, so you can use your messenger without actually installing additional messengers. You can go in private mode to help you stay secure. So this is very similar to what it looked like when I installed it. These are the speed dials that was installed by default, and these were the suggested sites that's turned on. And as you can see here, these are some of the sites that I went to, and so it suggested those. That's where I actually have my website. I went to Yahoo to look at the Yahoo Sports, and I went to the New York Times to look at the COVID information and the other sites as well. Now, here's how to install it. If you're not using an Ubuntu or an Ubuntu derivative, you can click on the Opera link here, and since I do have a pop-up blocker, I can say allow this particular pop-up, and then it will open up their website to allow you to download that will fit your operating system. If you hit download now, it will automatically detect the type of operating system I'm using. In this case, you see it's a penguin, which is the icon for a Linux system. If you're using a Windows system, you should see the little Windows icon. The Mac system, you should see the Mac icon. And then if you're using Android device, it probably will take you to like the Google Play Store where you can download it for your Android system. And there's a lot of information. It talks about a lot of the things that I talked about on my website that's fast and ad-free. You can go on the private mode and use the VPN. It's very efficient by using workspace's flow and the tab cycler. And there's a lot of little handy tools such as the video pop-out with a built-in messengers on your sidebar. So I do have a lot of links. And then there's an actual gaming Opera browser that's more configured for gamers that does online gaming. But I'm not going to focus on the GX version of Opera. I'm just going to show you the key features of the Opera browser itself. So you can click the download button, and since I'm using Ubuntu, it's going to download the deb file. So you can use your deb installer. I'm using GDebi, so I just double click. I locate the file. Once I've downloaded it, I double click it. It opens up my package installer. I click the install package. I put in my password, click the authenticate button, and wait till you see same version is already installed before you close the package installer, or wait till you see the reinstall, download, and remove package button. Now, once you get it installed, you do not need to keep that file on your system. You know, it's easy to double click that, hit remove package to take it off your system. Now, I will say there's one thing that I do like about the installer for the Opera system is that not only will install it on your system, it will also add the repo on your system, so when you're updating your software, it will actually update the Opera browser when there's a new version available. The second step is for installing the Snapcraft. If you like the Snapcraft, you can click here and it will take you to the Snapcraft store where you can click install and install Opera by using snaps. Now here's where I showed you that it will add the repo to your software updater list so that when you update your software, it will automatically update the Opera browser. So if you do want to remove Opera, if you decide that you don't want it and it's taking up space and you never use it, you can open up your terminal, simply copy the sudo apt remove Opera stable, hit copy, paste it into your terminal, press the enter or return key. Now it will leave the repo here, so if you do want to remove that so that you're not looking for an update of Opera, if it's no longer installed, you can open up your software updater and software and updates, click on the software other software tab, locate the Opera browser, select it, click the remove button, and then click close, and then it'll have you to refresh, and that way it will remove it from your system. Now as you can see here, I did this last week and I've been waiting for an update, and so it finally occurred. So I don't know when the original that I installed last week was created, but in the week's time that I did this web page from last week to this week, there was an update. So when you're updating your software in your system, your software updater, there was an Opera update, so I chose to install it. So if you're using the deb package, it will install your repo, your PPA to your repositories so that you'll get future updates. You don't have to constantly look for updates manually. Now here is the menu to the actual browser. So you got the new tab, which will open up a new tab. It'll open up a new window, so there'll be two windows that you'll see down here on your status bar. You could open a new private window, so it's kind of like going into private mode, so when you're searching it's not recording any of your information. To look at pages on the internet, you can go in full screen, you can print a page, you can save a page, or you can save a page as a PDF file. You can control your zoom, you can increase or decrease the zoom. You can look for certain words on particular websites. You can search across your tabs. You can take a snapshot, so it does have a built-in screenshot tool. If you say take a snapshot, you can crop a particular area. You can say capture, copy and close to cancel. In this case, I'm going to cancel it out. So it does have a built-in screenshot tool if you don't want to install like Nimbus as an add-on, because it does have a snapshot tool. Now the Nimbus snapshot tool that you can add as an extension will get a whole web page, whereas this one will just take what's viewable on your screen. Here's the history, where you can see the locations that I currently went to while this browser was open. And if you want to look at your past history, you can click on history, and before you close it, you can say to clear your browser data so no one can look at the places that you've visited. This will take you to your downloads. It will open up your download folder that you've got preset or when you click on something to download to. These are your bookmarks. You can say to show the bookmark bar, which was also on the easy setup in the upper right hand corner. You can add the pages to your bookmarks. You can organize your bookmarks. As you see here, there's only a TV local listing, so if I click onto this, I can see what's currently coming on the TV in my area. You can say import your bookmarks and settings from another browser, and you can export your bookmarks, so you can save it as a file so you can import into another browser. Here's your extensions. You can go to manage your extensions or to get extensions. So if I hit the extensions, this will show you all the extensions that I have added up here in the corner. And there won't be any extensions already pre-installed, and I do have a link on my website that you can take you to the website where you can look up, or you can over here where you want to look at the keyboard shortcuts, or you can say get more extensions, and it will take you to the add-ons Opera website where you can search for a particular add-on, or you can browse through the add-ons that you see here. And there are lots and lots of add-ons and extensions that you can add. Remember, when you're installing extensions can monitor the locations that you're visiting on the websites, so please be aware that when you're installing an extension that you want to keep in mind that it may monitor what you're doing. So you might not want a lot of extensions. Most of mine are just for privacy purposes. That's the uBlock to block ads. This is the pop-up blocker, and as you saw a while ago when I clicked the link, I had to allow it, so it's a great pop-up blocker. This is the Privacy Badger. This is the Web of Trust, that when I'm using Google or any search engines, it will give a little green shield if it's safe, a little yellow one if it's a kind of caution you, or a little red X if it's a dangerous site to visit. This is the HTTPS everywhere, where it tries to go to a secure site if there's a secure site available. So I just really have the extensions that improve the privacy and keep my internet surfing safe. But you can see here it has some of the most popular ones to where they're within view. Let me go ahead and close this. Close this. go back to my menu. I just was at extensions. You can say the get extensions here, which will take you back to that same link. You can click the news, which kind of like was the news that you saw across the bottom. You can synchronize your Opera browser amongst different computers. You can go to turn on developer tools, look at the page source and the task manager. Here's your settings, and the settings, if you're a new user, can be overwhelming, and that's why they have the easy setup over here to make it a lot easier for new users of the Opera browser. And on my website, before I start going through all the settings, I have each settings section and a brief description on each of these. So before you start going through here, you might want to look over my website, and I'm not going to go through and read all of that. That's very time consuming, but I have broke it down into each section, and I even showed you how you can use the VPN to display a different IP address than yours, and you can actually go to what is my IP address to show that it's not. You can click on the IP address when you're not using the VPN to look at your actual IP address. You can turn on the VPN, but remember, just because it's displaying another IP address doesn't mean it's 100% secure. That there are ways that you can find out your IP address, but it does give you a sense of security. And if you're wanting a VPN from a different location, like if you're choosing, if I go up here for the VPN and I choose a different, I got to turn it on. If I choose another location such as Europe, if I'm being blocked out of like some streaming sites, if I choose the VPN in Europe, that will allow me to see some sites that would normally block me out by restrictions. So that's really where the VPN will come in handy, is by allowing you to see stuff that you're normally blocked out. Now here's your MyFlow, your crypto wallet, and I'm not going to go through and explain everything because I have a description of each of the setting. Now here's the add-ons that I just showed you, and I've got a couple options like uBlock Origin. That's the one I have installed. You can choose the AdGuard blocker by clicking these links. There's the pop-up blocker Strict. Now the one thing I don't show you here because I don't have it installed is if you would like to install extensions or add-ons from the Chrome store, the Google Chrome store, you can install this extension here. And what it will do is it will allow you, this install Google Chrome's extension, and I haven't added it yet, that will allow you to install add-ons or extensions from the Google Chrome web store. So you can increase the number of add-ons and extensions by installing that on your website. Now if you don't want to see these, like if you're making a lot of screencasts for YouTube and you don't want all of your icons being displayed on your panel, you can actually unpin them. You can click this little 3D cube that you see here, which are your extensions, and you can unpin them. I have every one of them pinned here, but if I don't want something displayed like the HTTPS everywhere, it will still work if I unpin it. And it will make it look less cluttery. Like the WOT Web of Trust, you really don't need to see that because there's no numbers that's showing you what they're blocking out. So if I wanted to turn off the Web of Trust, I could unpin it. When I say turn it off, I meant by displaying it on this panel. So I can go here and then it's hidden, but it's still working in the background. It's still installed, and each of these, like I told you earlier, they have full access to websites that you do visit. So that way you don't have a lot of add-ons, or especially if you do use a lot of extensions, it's not taking up a lot of your real estate on your address bar. But if you want to turn them back on, click the cube, pin them, and it will place them in the order of the way that you pin them. So if you wanted your ad block first, you would pin it first. So if I want to reverse these orders, I would go unpin this one, unpin this one. Now I would pin this one first and then pin this one second. So the order that you pin them is the direction, the way that this would be the first pin, second pin, third pin, fourth pin, and fifth pin of the extension. So you can control the order that you see them on the bar. It does work great with YouTube. Now I didn't try it before since it has a built-in ad blocker. I went ahead and installed that, so I don't know if it showed any ads. A lot of times with built-in ad blockers, it'll have a little button saying skip ad, but it will not show the ad. But I did not try to view it before I installed the uBlock ad blocker. Now I showed you the speed dials when I first started the video, but if you do want to edit your speed dials, you can hover over it, click the dot dot dot, click on edit, and you can change the site from whatever is the preset setting to whatever setting that you want. So I changed the Amazon icon of the speed dial to DuckDuckGo, and I chose the DuckDuckGo URL. So that way when I click that speed dial, it will take me to DuckDuckGo. And as you can see here, this is now the new modified speed dial. And I chose the bigger speed dials, but I think I changed it to smaller ones. So when you look now, they're much smaller than what they were when I originally modified them. Easy setup. I showed you the EDC setup. Here I go through and describe each of the settings, and you do have different wallpaper here, like the animated ones, then going through your settings. Sidebar. If you do turn on the sidebar, I have a little description of each of those. You can, and I'll turn it back on, and I'll hover over some of those. For sidebar, which is here, let me close this. This right here, if you hover over them, this allows you to look at the ones where you got different workspace. Like if I chose to open a tab in a different workspace, I could change my workspace here. This is my workspace changer, so I'm currently looking at workspace 1. This is where you can look at like workspace 2, and if you keep using different workspaces, they'll grow here. This is your little divider bar. Here's where you got your Facebook Messenger. So if you're someone that has a Facebook account and you use the Facebook Messenger, you can enable the Facebook Messenger, click on this, and have the Facebook Messenger pop out where you can, and I'm not logged in. I do have Facebook, but I very seldom log into the Facebook Messenger and use it. When I get online, I usually mostly either edit my web page, learn about Linux, or look up what's coming on television, or look up news. But you can log out, you can hide this panel, or you can mute the messenger. So if someone's messaging you, it will not bleep, especially like if you're making a video. It won't interrupt your video. You can click it to toggle it on, click it again to toggle it off. This is a WhatsApp. So if you click onto the WhatsApp, if you're a WhatsApp user, then you can do the same as this. If you have an Instagram account, you can log into your Instagram on the sidebar. So if you have an Instagram account, and I don't, you can log into your Instagram here. You can take these off the panels by going to your settings and removing what's checked blue is displayed here. Or you can turn off workspaces by switching this toggle on. It's default toggled on. You can toggle them off, and you can edit the sidebar to have what you like for your surfing habits. This is a player. Now this player right here will allow you to play music from Apple Music Store, or like the iPlayer. This allows you to click and log in to Spotify, or this allows you to listen to YouTube music. So if you're someone that has an account for each of these, you can log into them and click the player, and it will open up, it will pop out and let you listen to music as you're surfing. This is your MyFlow, and I've got more direct information about MyFlow on my website. So this right here could be a whole new video in itself. But if you click the MyFlow, there is a tutorial about using MyFlow. So if you don't know what MyFlow is, click the MyFlow link, watch this tutorial, and it will give you more information. This is where you can bookmark websites as you're surfing. This right here is another way, instead of going to your menu and clicking history, this is another way of looking at your browser's history. And yeah, I could probably, since I haven't cleared them back, as you can see, I look up IMDb, I look up a lot of different other sites when I'm surfing. So most of them spend more about from the Opera web browser itself. So that's a way to look at your history. But you can clear your history. You can click the button here, and that will wipe out all of your history. So if you're concerned about someone looking at the websites that you visit when you're using this browser, you can say to clear your browser data. Now there's a feature in the settings that says when you close the browser, it will clear your history. So if you closed it and want to go back to something, it will be wiped out. So if you manually clear it, you've got control over when your history is being erased. This right here is your tutorials. This is a very Opera is a web browser with lots and lots of features, lots of things to learn about. So if you click this tutorials, it will take you to the Opera's tutorials where you can say getting started to help you from a new beginner up to the different workspaces, your snapshots, easy setup, your video pop out. You can take tutorials about anything on this particular browser. So I do like the way that it is set up. So if you're new to Opera, you can watch some of the tutorials to learn more about it. And this is the UBOC logger. So when I installed that, it added it to my sidebar. I'm not really a person that uses a sidebar. I think it takes up real estate from my surfing. So I like to keep that turned off. But if you like those features, you can turn it on where you have quick access to them. Now let me go back to the settings. Now let me quickly run through here. I'm not going to explain all of these. This section is for your privacy protection, where you can turn on to block your ads. And if you've got a website like some of the video websites, you might have to put some exceptions so that, like for example, Tubi TV, in order to watch Tubi TV, you have to click here, manage your exceptions, and these are some of the websites that are added so that they will not be blocked from the internal ad blocker that's installed within Opera. Here's allows you to block trackers, and again you can add exceptions so if a web page is not opening. Here's where you can look through your wallpapers that they have to choose from, and there's lots of them. These are some of the recent ones that I've looked at. You can choose to add more wallpaper by clicking here, choosing a wallpaper that's on your computer, or you can click get more wallpapers to take you online to install some more background images. This allows you to control your privacy and security to the way that you surf on the internet. I'm not going to read all of those for time's sake. This controls the way that the appearance of the browser. Like I said, the easy setup just has some of the basic settings. This gives you more advanced options. Here is the way that you can manage your sidebar, which if I click that, it's almost like clicking the dot 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 to bring up where you can modify your sidebar. This allows you to sign in to your Opera account to synchronize the Opera browsers. This allows you to control what search engine that you're using, like you can set it to show a search box, or you can use the URL as a search box, and you can manage your search engine. So if you don't want Google, you can choose whatever, and you can manage what ones that you have installed within the browser. You can make this your default browser. You can begin with your start page. You can retain from the previous page that you've had left off, or you can open to a specific page by clicking here and choosing what page that you want the browser to open to. Here's the advanced, where you can autofill like passwords to websites, payment methods, or addresses for locations that ask for like your mailing address. The web RTC, this is the recommended. You have other settings up here as well. This is where you can enable and disable the VPN. So by default, it was turned off. So if you go into your settings, click the advanced settings so that you can see the advanced features, then you can enable the VPN. But like I said earlier, you can also do that through the easy setup to turn your VPN on. If you're using a laptop, and this is a desktop system, you can enable the battery saver. Since this is a desktop, it really doesn't matter if I keep it on or off. I think by default it was switched on. So this will help save your battery power for laptop users. And if you're an Android device, it won't drain your battery as quick. This controls the actual player, so it will enable the player. So you click on it, it will start playing from the given amount of time that you have preset. Again, there's MyFlow. Here's a description, but there's a video that shows more about MyFlow on the tutorial of the sidebar. MyFlow is your personal space for links, videos, images, notes, and what you have on your computer and phone at the same time. Since I'm not demonstrating synchronizing a phone with your browser on your computer, then I'm not really going to get into MyFlow. The crypto wallet, this is where you can save like on your phone or your device. You can enable the crypto wallet within the browser. Here's where you can have a search pop-up, where you can allow it to pop up and search. You can look for units, your currency. I'm in the United States, so it's for US dollars. You can choose for whatever currency you have, for what country you have. I'll turn that back on. You can, within a drop down, you can set your time zone automatically by choosing your location. So if you have your VPNs turned on, and this is automatically, it will probably display the time if it within the browser for the time zone that was selected of your VPN. This is the video pop-out window. So if you on a website like YouTube, it will allow you, like if you scroll down, the video will pop out of the screen and it will go like in a corner where you can continue watching it as you're scrolling down and reading comments. So this allows the video to pop out from the website. This allows you to update the personal news. So if you have the personal news or the news section, it will update the allotted time that you put here. These are what you can see on your start page. If you choose to start your browser with a start page, you have lots of features that you can enable or disable. This is your user interface. This is the way that you communicate with your browser. You can set it to change the settings according to the way that you use. Here's where you can change your language. By default, it chooses the language of the operating system, but you can drop down and choose a different language. You can enable the spell check feature, so if you're typing like in an email or something, the browser will sense that if a word is misspelled, it will offer a suggestion. You can customize your spell check. Like in science, there's a lot of terms that's not in a normal spell check. In electronic terminology, you can add words to your dictionary. Your downloads, by default, as you can see, it's in my home folder. I can click the change button and change that, or I can enable it so that each time I go to download, I can choose the location I place my download in. Accessibilities, these are so that you can show quick links highlighted. So these are like captions on websites that you can go and change the options. I don't really use those. Your system, use the hardware accelerator when available. If you're using an older computer or an older laptop or an older Intel video driver, you might have to switch this off. Like if you go to YouTube and it's real choppy, or you go to maximize the video and it goes and it appears to be frozen, but you can hear the audio in the background, I recommend to disable the hardware accelerator. So that way you're using the browser accelerator. But I'm using a desktop system that's a little bit more powerful than my older laptops, so I can enable that. But if you're using an older equipment, if you're having problems with video, I recommend them to switching that off and trying it and to make sure, see if it will work. With one of my old laptops, I have to disable the hardware accelerator on my Chromium devices, Chromium-based devices, so that they work properly. This allows you to modify or configure your shortcuts, and if you want to go back to the preset settings when you installed it, you can go click here and it will take you back to your default settings. So there's lots of ways that you can customize this browser. It's very highly customizable, and I do have each section on my website illustrated. Now, for some reason you want to know more about it, you can click the links that I have at the bottom. For Opera Help, I do have a pop-up blocker. I hit allow and it will take you to the help section. This helps you get to know Opera. You can look at what's on the side, normally find whatever you're looking for. If you're just a beginner, you can start from the getting started to about anything, and you've got tutorials that you can watch, tutorials about how to learn to use Opera. So they have a great website. You can also how to configure your Opera desktop browser. So if you're a desktop user and you don't know much about configuring, this is still from the Opera website. You can read this article here that will help you set up your browser, and it steps you step by step about configuring your browser on your desktop. And if you just want to read the blogs from the Opera website, this is where other people like that they provide you with news. Like this is the most currently updated news with the Opera. It gives more about adds the music player. You can go through here and read the current news, and you have additional links across the top. So this is a quick rundown. It might not have been quick, but it was a rundown of the Opera web browser. So if you're looking for a different web browser, you might want to give Opera a try. It might not be the right browser for you, but I want to express that this is a great operating system that works on Ubuntu or Ubuntu derivative systems. So if you're wanting to switch from Windows or Mac to a Linux system, then it's good if you're familiar with a browser on the operating system that you're currently on, so when you switch to a Linux operating system that you're still in that comfort zone. So if you're wanting to switch from Windows to Linux, if you're using Opera in a Windows environment and you switch to Linux, you can still install Opera and still feel in that comfort zone. You're not really learning anything new because you're still using the software or the web browser in this case that you used on the operating system that you're currently on. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and have a great day.